Can you hear it loud? The world is ready. Stand up proud. Your story is power. Your passion's the spark. With Innovate AI and i3, you'll leave your mark.
I want to share something with you, and this is a song that evolved. Mamie, who's not here, has been working for decades in professional development. She shared stages and supported people like T. Harv Eker. She's worked behind the scenes with Tony Robbins, coordinating all of his events. And professional development, mindset, all those things are so powerful. And when we started talking about our collective experience, and I'll share a little bit more about my background in just a minute, we said there needs to be a way to help people really understand clearly how to take all the information that's out there and distill it so that they can actually live the life that they're meant to live. And so one of the things we did was we created a song that sort of summarizes a little bit of the program. So I'm going to play this for you. And I want you to listen to the lyrics and think about how this is relevant for you as you sit here now and what it is that you really want to create in the world for you, right? What will it take for you to step into your power, to become invincible from invisible?
It's time to realize. Ignite your passion, light up the sky. Unleash your vision, watch it fly high. With Dr. Eric and Billy Jean by your side. Building legacies that won't be denied. Step into your purpose, let it unfold. Empower your story, let the truth be told. Ignite your passion, the fire within. This is your moment, let your journey begin. Every step you'll turn dreams into plans. Align with your mission, let it show where you stand. Guided by purpose, let your passion lead. You're here to build a future, to plant the seed. Oh, the power's in your hands, don't look away. Take action now, today's your day. From potential to reality, watch it grow. With aligned action, you'll own the show. Ignite your passion, light up the sky. Unleash your vision, watch it fly high. With Dr. Eric and Minnie Jean by your side. Building legacies that won't be.
So think about that legacy and think about 3 years from now, or even a year from now, where do you want to be? Okay. So powerful to think about what that looks like. I want to acknowledge our gracious host, CBRE, for the day. And I'm going to call you out because you're so indiscreet. Hank Cox from CBRE is here with us. He'll be in and out probably during the day. But they've been a legacy sponsor. I see some familiar faces actually from last year. And we had a number of people that spent the whole day here last year because we had a lot of similar sessions. And so we're back. And one of the sessions that was so popular was Ignite Your Passion. We got so many people coming up and emailing us and connecting with us, talking about that. And so what I'm going to invite you to do, last year, if you were here, how many of you were here last year for that? Okay, a couple people were. We had handouts, and we're trying to be a little bit more sustainable and eco-friendly. So we decided to save some paper. So I'm going to invite you to scan this because what it's going to take you to is a form that you'll be able to fill in because we're going to have some prompts. This is a working session. You're just not going to sit here and absorb. We're going to be asking you things about your values, what you're committed to, what your vision, what your mission, like those types of things. And then as you put that in, it's going to summarize it to help you understand like your message. How many of you feel like you've got your elevator pitch nailed? Oh no. 404 error.
Just an error.
Okay. All right, well, we're not going to do that then. We'll walk through it together.
Different than the one on the hood.
I don't know, actually.
So that one worked, the one on the door,
Well, that's for the check-in. This is something different.
and it brought you to you can list all the.
Yeah, yep. That's all right. I don't know, Dahlia, if you can get a hold of Mamie by chance and see. Okay, so we won't do that check-in, and we'll pivot. It's being adaptable. I think the number one skill in life is being able to adapt. How many of you feel like change is happening fast, right? I mean,
It's inevitable.
It's inevitable, right? Absolutely. And it's ongoing all the time. That worked yesterday, so I don't know what happened with our slide deck, or if there's something on the back end. So I apologize. We'll make sure you get the actual form, though, after the session if we don't get it working during this time period. But just a little bit by way of background before we actually begin. So for me, I have been a lifelong learner. And I actually just love information, but more important than information is the ability to apply it. And so I started my quest and went the traditional as an entrepreneur. I was the kid selling candy out of my backpack on the playground in elementary school. I remember I won a contest selling world's finest chocolate bars. And this will probably outdate some of you, but an audio cassette recorder was the grand prize, and I won it. And I was the coolest thing. I heard actually for the first time ever my voice. Like, this is what I sound like, really? But it was like, I recognized that, and I remember having the conversation with my mom. I was like, this is fantastic. But I made so much money selling these chocolate bars. I mean, hundreds of dollars, and I got a cassette recorder. Now, it was worth like $20 or something, so it was a lot, but I'm like, couldn't I just sell candy and make money for myself? She's like, yeah, actually. And I never met either of my grandparents, but she shared with me her father actually was a glass cutter, and he had a business cutting glass in Chicago. My dad grew up on the south side of Chicago in the projects. His dad actually owned a grocery store. I never met either one of them, and I never heard the stories. Like, I guess I never asked, like, what did my grandparents do? I was pretty young. And so I'm like, oh my God, like both my grandfathers owned businesses? So I went on to do a lot of different things, from starting mowing lawns, and before I knew it, I had a landscaping company, and mowing 30, 40 lawns a week and having people do that. And paid my way through college, and just all sorts of things. I was doing background checks for like the Cherry Creek School District and other things before I was even 20. We had a company, we were tied into the Colorado Bureau of Investigation and doing criminal checks and credit checks with all the big 3 credit bureaus. So it's been a fun journey. And then my dad at one point said, why don't you get a real job? Because he was that guy who went to work and literally retired with the gold pocket watch after decades of experience. And I listened to him. And I'll share more about that in just a minute. But ultimately, as a lifelong learner, I found myself wanting more. And I went back and got my master's degree. Actually, I got a real job. I worked at UPS. It was like a big company, billion-dollar company. And worked with them, and they obviously supported me getting my master's degree. And I continued to learn. And eventually, one of the professors that I was working with, I was consulting with him, and he said, have you ever thought about a PhD? I'm like, no, I don't want to be in school that long. But I ultimately did. So I earned my PhD at CU Boulder in business administration, and then became a professor and quickly moved into administrative roles, being a department chair. Spent over a decade as a business school dean, including leading the largest college in the nation for the business school. And ultimately then moved into chief academic provost, VP of academic type roles, overseeing curriculum. So I'm passionate about helping bring information, whether it was people in executive MBA programs, custom corporate training, or undergraduates getting certificate programs. It didn't matter, because there's things that you can learn and do. And through that process, became certified in coaching because of working with leaders and organizations in a field called neuro-linguistic program. I'm a master practitioner in that area as well, but I'm passionate about making a difference. And you'll see some images of technology here. And the other part of it I should share, after that audio cassette recorder, my dad said, I haven't brought home some of the stuff I'm doing at work. I'm like, what type of stuff are you doing at work? We worked for Western Electrics, and one of their premier products was that image you see up there was a coupling device that actually you took the phone and you hooked it into it and you dialed a number and you heard that screeching sound, right? It was like the modem connecting. And I can remember he brought home, it was like a briefcase that had a keyboard embedded in it. And he showed me how I could play a game with it by moving the space bar up and down and stuff. And that just like, oh my God, like this is really cool. I'm like interacting through a phone with something. And obviously, I was an early adopter for like the Mac when that came out. And then that kid, before I even had my license, that had a cell phone that I could plug in to the car I was going to get. because I wanted that. It was like a big satchel thing that you set in the center, and then I got that Motorola brick. But I've always been fascinated with technology, and that'll be important later. But in terms of my passion, going back to my mom and my dad, I wanted to share a few things about them. Because ultimately, my mom, she passed about 9 months ago. And really tough stretch in the last couple of years. And even a few years back, almost lost her. She had sepsis, and we didn't think she was going to make it then. And unfortunately, she pulled through. But one of the things that we talked about was her dreams and like, what did she really want to do in life? And she asked me this question: what would it mean to live by your values, to be true to yourself, to craft a legacy so profound that it inspires other people to really tap into their gifts and rekindle their passions? And part of my journey was helping her do that. Because at one point she was in so much pain and so distraught that she attempted suicide. And I had to work it back out of her to rekindle her passion and her love, literally having her make a list of like, what do you like to do? What did you enjoy? And that's when I heard the story. She was an award-winning student, Niles Township High School, the one student that got the art scholarship to the School of the Art Institute. But it wasn't a full ride. And actually, ironically, later I consulted with that same school. But her parents said, that's no way, you're not going to make a living as an artist. And her dad wanted her to be a teacher, and her mom wanted her to be a nurse. She ended up going into teaching. And I've got to say, I've had amazing people in my life. How many of you have had a great mentor or teacher in your life, right? And for me, that was her, and it was my dad. Because when I meet somebody that can teach me, I could learn so much, right? I think we all have experienced that, no matter who it is. Someone that has really changed the destiny of our life. And for her, she said, I wish I would have lived a life true to myself. Last November, about a month before she passed. That was her biggest regret. So for me, this program and helping it come alive is a part of that, and this idea of the courage to live authentically, to do what you want to do. And one of her passions, she was a painter, she did jewelry, but she loved pottery. So even up until literally a couple weeks before she passed, I was taking her weekly to the rec center. They had a pottery studio and kiln, and she would do and create and build things. And she would mold clay, and she would take it. It's not about shaping the clay into something. It's letting it become what it's meant to be, right? We all have something, and it's reflecting on your core values, your passion, what your purpose is, and aligning it to live a life that truly matters. Because life is short, and when you embrace your authentic self and strip out those masks of who society and others expect you to be, or for me, like, well, once you get a real job, like, this is the way we do it, right? It's the industrial age. You're just a cog in the wheel driving these corporations. So give yourself a pat on the back. That's why I'm so passionate about entrepreneurship, and I've had the opportunity to develop entrepreneurship programs with universities as well. So what we're doing here is incredibly powerful. And my dad, don't get me wrong, because he instilled the discipline in me. And it's funny, like they say, you know, you become your parents. And I used to marvel. He would get up at 5 a.m. and go out running. But that wasn't what he started doing. He was a football player in high school. He got that desk job. It was Western Electric, AT&T, Bell Labs, Lucent, Avaya, like all those companies, that progression of the transitions. And ultimately, what happened was, as a desk job, going from being active, an athlete, he gained hundreds of pounds, literally. He was two people. And there was a day I remember where he came home and we were sitting at dinner and he asked me to go get his pipe and tobacco. And I'm like, okay. And he shared with me he was at the dentist, and the dentist thinks he's got cancer in his mouth. And they're doing a biopsy, but he said, like, I don't care, I'm not having cancer. And if I do, I want to be here to see you grow up. And ultimately, he said, take all that tobacco and throw it in the trash. He called his best friend who was actually on the football team with him, who was a doctor. And he said, yeah, you're killing yourself. You've got to change everything. So in that minute, that week, my mom said, okay, I guess we're changing. He was a meat and potatoes guy. We literally went through the pantries, threw out all the processed food, everything else. And if anyone is, I'm a native of Colorado. Any natives here? Anyone remember a store called Rainbow Grocery off of Colfax? Probably the first organic store in the Denver metro area. We would drive 40 minutes from where we lived to go there. And I was that kid that then went from Wonder Bread to wheat bread and things with nuts and carob chips and like all this stuff. But bottom line, he literally asked me, will you walk with me? I'm like, yeah, of course I'd walk with you, because he got winded walking to the mailbox. That was one of the reasons he came out from Chicago to Colorado, because the air was cleaner and better for his asthma. And we'd do 1 mailbox a day, literally walking 1 mailbox every day. And before you know it, we had gone around the block. Before you know it, he was going around multiple times. And before you know it, he started walking faster and jogging. And then fast forward, he ran a marathon. And I ran track, and I couldn't keep up with him. He'd ask me to go for a run. I'm like, are you going for a short run or a long run? Because the long run for him was like half a marathon. He would do that sometimes on a weekend. But I learned the discipline and persistence that he had. And the thing that is powerful about some of the lessons I learned from him, a little over 14 years ago, he didn't know it was going to be his last day on earth. He was killed in a car accident. And so when you think about the impact of that, and it's Steve Jobs that said at a commencement address, if you live each day as if it's your last, you know what? One of these days you're going to be right. So what are you waiting for? Think about it, right? What's stopping you? What's holding you back from really stepping into what you're doing? Because you're 1 in a trillion. It's a miracle you're here. Biologically speaking, the odds, like what happened if your parents didn't meet, or my parents went on a blind date? What if that hadn't happened? I mean, you've got everything is unique in your body, your DNA, and all the things that had to happen because of that. The other thing that is even on top of that, and there's a lot going on in the world right now, and I'm proud to say my grandfather was a Holocaust survivor. And he made his way out of Sachsenhausen and actually bribed a guard to be able to get transferred out of there. Lost almost everybody in his family. I've got a list of over 100 people that were killed in just his side of the family, not to mention other relatives. And so the fact that, what if that hadn't happened? My mother would not have been born in England. I wouldn't be here as a first generation, really, American. Think about that. So whatever your story is, I invite you to own it and be proud about it, because ultimately, and this is something I heard someone ask, what is the most valuable place on earth? And it's not Saudi Arabia, it's not where the diamonds are or the oil fields, it's the graveyard, right? Think about that. Because that's where those dreams, those books, those stories, the business that maybe you've thought of, or the products you thought of offering, go to die. It's up to you to bring them to life. Because ultimately, and it's the wisdom, it's the unspoken messages, it's the relationships maybe that you never healed or created because there was something holding you back, right? So the question is, are you building a business or a legacy with what you're doing? Think about it. And it boils down to your why in terms of your motivation, because if you don't have a strong enough why, it's not sustainable. I think it was Nietzsche who said, he who has a reason why can sustain anyhow. He'll find a way, right? And even Viktor Frankl. Anyone read the book Man's Search for Meaning? Really? A couple people. Really powerful book, probably the best book I've ever read about understanding the importance of meaning in our life. And that came clear to me as I rekindled my mom's spark, if you will. Like, what is meaningful to you? What do you want to do? What do you want to be? Who do you want to be? Who are you? And rediscovering that, right? So as you look at your core passions and you develop clarity around your vision and what you want to do with your life, and not just in your business. I know that's why we're here. But ultimately, I remember I was doing some coaching work with the CEO that had probably a $20 million company. Not a huge company, but we had the conversation about what's important, what was most valuable to him. And as we peeled back the layers, his number one value was family. And I asked him, how does that show up? What are you doing? Because he was at a space of like burnout. Even though he was doing this, he had incredible teams traveling all over the world. He was burnt out, working literally 18, 20-hour days. And I said, how do you spend time with family? Because if that's important to you, what does that look like? He's like, well, I provide for them. That's why I'm doing all these things that I do. And he's like, do you think that's what's most important to your family? Why don't you have a conversation? So that was one of his homework assignments, because I always give my coaching clients work to do and things to reflect on. He came back and he said, you're right. No, I heard from 3 of his kids the same thing, like, you never show up. You're never at my soccer game, you're in my gymnastics, you haven't even been at some of our birthday parties, for God's sake. It was a wake-up call for him to recognize that and say, okay, if I really value family, how do I need to behave? And that's why with this process, I invite you to think about, and if you got something to write with, sorry that the technology didn't work, but in your own mind, think about what are your top values? Because ultimately, when you do that and you connect with your values and you're aligned with your why, you won't burn out. You've got that Energizer bunny running within you, right? That wakes you up in the morning. So it's not a grind and it feels powerful. And so your values, again, are what's really essential to you and the core things. And so your challenge is to identify maybe 3 to 5 core values that define who you are at your essence. What is most important to you, right? Think about it. Who you are, what defines you, what would you die for, that you would take a stand for. For me, it's integrity, it's humility. There's a lot of other things. Family, of course, is incredibly important. And peace is a high value of mine as well. And how do we do that in a way that we can actually impact the world? So that would be the first thing that we'd be asking you to put in the app. But again, think about your values. What are your top values? And see if you can narrow it down. And with my clients, a lot of times I'll give them a list of 100 values and help them like, okay, now narrow that down and narrow it down and narrow it down. So it can be a progressive process to do that. And I invite you to envision your future. But actually, before we do that, let me have you do something. Just turn to somebody next to you and I'm going to give you probably about 3 minutes. Let's do it this way. And talk about your top values with somebody near you. What's really near and dear to your heart that you would never sacrifice? Okay? So go ahead and get started. We'll give you a couple minutes to talk about your values with a complete stranger, right? If you guys can hear me, would you raise your hand for me, please? Okay, so thank you. So one of the things, did you discover something about sharing your values and thinking about really what's important to you? And maybe something about somebody else. I know in those conversations, me personally, someone will mention a value, I'm like, oh my God, yes, I hadn't thought about that. That is really important, right? And so ultimately, when you think about what happens in terms of life, and we talk about the roles we have as a father, a business owner, maybe a mother, a sibling, a daughter, whatever it is, we all have different identities and different things that we do. And when you meet somebody, what's one of the first questions that you typically ask somebody? What do you do? What do you do? Think about that. Isn't that interesting? What does that say about our values, right? Versus like, who are you? Like, what do you stand for? What's meaningful to you? Think about how that would shift the conversation if you would do that. So I'm going to share 4 questions with you that are pretty powerful to begin thinking about. And I invite you to think about, what do you stand for? What's your foundation? What are the principles that really guide you in life, that help you? What's your North Star, right? It's part of those values. But what will you stand for? What would you die for on your sword, right? If somebody were to threaten it or question it. And then to think about, you can count on me for what? And these are great questions. I have my clients a lot of times ask these 4 questions to their family, to their friends, to coworkers, in terms of, what can you count on me to? What am I great at doing? What are my strengths? What do you see as? Because a lot of times we're blind to the things we do effortlessly Again, it comes back to that uniqueness, 1 in 400 trillion. You're wired with DNA that nobody else on this planet, 8 billion people, have. Think about that. And so ultimately, what can you be counted on for? Because that's something that's part of you that is probably driven by your values in terms of what you share or what you want to contribute and how you show up. And then to think about your vision is, where are you headed? What do you want to create? What do you see in the future? What is that legacy? Imagine being on your deathbed and having the opportunity to think back on your life. Someone once said, you know, the definition of hell is being on your deathbed and meeting that person, your future self that you could have become, right? That's the definition of hell. So don't let that happen. Be that person you're meant to be. What does that vision look like for you, for your business, for what you're creating in your life that will benefit others in the world when you are successful? So an example, again, with these, for what I stand for. It says, I stand for authenticity, growth, and compassion, could be an example. A vow. You can count on me to listen deeply, to speak authentically and truthfully, to listen deeply, to guide others with integrity. Those could be the types of statements you come up with. For your vision, my vision, and this is actually Mamie, who's not here, is to inspire women leaders worldwide to speak with courage and create businesses that outlive them. And the invitation then is, open that door for connection in a different way than you had in the past. What do? Right? How about I tell you what I stand for? What would that look like? Changing the conversation. And for her, she's inviting you to join me in building a community of entrepreneurs who choose purpose over pressure. Think about that. We have that same thing in common. She's actually speaking at another event this morning, but she'll be here shortly. And this is usually a presentation she gives, so I just added a little bit of my touch to it. But ultimately, with these questions, for me, I stand for empowering others to discover, to leverage, and maximize their potential ultimately. Think about that. And it's by doing that in a way that you can actually have an opportunity to think about human intelligence, but transforming human intelligence with the benefit of parallel power of artificial intelligence. And so my vision is to trans people and create a community of confident leaders, of confident, empowered leaders who embrace their unique gifts and are using advanced technology to amplify their impact. Someone has said, like, money can't buy time. That was always the thing. Money doesn't grow on trees. All these beliefs about money. But I'll tell you what, for me, the idea of time, when I saw my dad die, totally unexpected, time is precious. And so when you think about leveraging time, and as a business strategist, because that's what's at my core is I help companies grow and scale, it's that ability to make time, to do what you want to do, and have that business that just is like self-managed and running. And so that's part of what my vision is, to empower people to use that so they can live their legacy and not leave a legacy, live it today. Because again, tomorrow's not promised to anybody. And so you can count on me with integrity and to serve as a powerful catalyst by combining my expertise with powerful, proven leadership expertise and AI expertise to help you elevate your business and your life, not just in your business. Financial, family, health, all those different aspects. Think of it as a wheel of life. What are all those different things that you're doing? And I invite you to step into our Innovate AI Nation. And again, when you check in for the challenge and also opting in if you'd like the recordings, you'll have an opportunity to join that membership as you post and do stuff with our Ignite AI Challenge so that you can create the legacy and actually live the legacy you imagine. I sort of indirectly shared Mamie's information, but I'm going to just go ahead and read it together because it's a little different than what you saw as those examples. Because she says, I stand for and I'm committed to authenticity, opportunity, systems, and self-mastery. My vision is to lead, teach, and inspire 20 million global impact leaders to have powerful conversations that move them from invisible to influential. And you can count on me to hear you, to see you, to communicate with accuracy, precision, and connection, and to empower you to leverage your zone of genius. Think about what that is for you. And she invites you to join us for our Ignite Your Passion Mastermind, where we unlock your potential, empower your vision, and create lasting impact through aligned action. And you may have noticed, okay, you did get the new code. Okay, we'll figure out. We do have a code that's working. Sorry about that. But ultimately, when you think about igniting your passion, you noticed when I was sharing with that Ignite AI challenge, there's only a few top things that were limited to two, or the top 3 finalists. Ignite your passion isn't one of them. So there's an opportunity at your fingertips to become visible and to stop being the best kept secret with what you're doing in your business and let people find you and understand, like, hey, I am working on my business. I am dedicating time to be at Colorado Startup Week. I'm going to these sessions to learn, to grow, so that I can better serve you. And stop hiding and also promote what you're doing in those posts. Tell people on a reel, what do you stand for, right? And let people understand who you really are, not what you do. Because we would love to have every one of you in that program next month. So again, you've got a couple-day window to earn those points to do that. And so if you're ready to ignite your passion again, and then also we have an opportunity for you to join in this gamification, really, and that's the journey. The other thing I want to point out to you as we wrap up this session is we're making it easy for you to not only do those selfies and create those wheels and take pictures of other things that you're seeing throughout the day that are valuable to you, but as you scan this QR code, this will give you the invitation to actually register on a site, and you can see these little screenshots here of each different window. But on the bottom of it, after you scan it, you'll be taken to a screen, and it says Murphy's Memories Event Photos. And I want to do a shout out to Stephen Murphy from Murphy's Photos. I want to shout out to Graham Johnstone as well, who's videoing today. Amazing individuals, Murphy's Memories and Black Dove Studios, that are helping support, bringing information to you. But ultimately, once you scan that and you go to the bottom of it where it says retrieve your event pictures, what's so cool is that you'll have an opportunity to walk through something, you put in your contact information, you do a selfie. AI, right? Facial recognition. So what will happen is any pictures that he's taking and he's roving around, or ones that you maybe take at the selfie station, we'll be having actually a little bit more fun photo booth set up at the Mixer tonight at Lucky Strike that we're doing at 5:30 on 16th Street Mall. But ultimately, every picture you're in will be in your personalized photo album that you can very quickly and easily access. And actually, you'll see when you click on it, a little image, you'll see a photo gallery of pictures you're in. And then once you click on the picture you want, you actually have photo sharing options, making it easy to share onto Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and all that stuff. So there's no reason why you can't do a couple posts, for God's sake. Think about it, right? Super, super powerful. So with that, I wanted to thank you for igniting your passion, for taking those steps to figure out what it is you truly stand for. Because again, the future isn't promised to anybody. And the other thing I'll leave you with is live a life true to yourself. That's something that I'm committed to after hearing my mother say that was her dying wish just a couple weeks before she passed. So think about that. What are you committed to? I invite you to get onto social media, do a reel, talk about what you stand for. Think about those 4 questions, all right? And we will figure out a mechanism. Obviously, also, we'll make sure if you checked in that you get the link to the Ignite Your Passion form, so you've got those 4 questions as well.
No more waiting, the moment is now. You've got the tools, we'll show you.